What's going on, everybody? This is Kyle here. Welcome to the You Know I Got Soul, So in Stereo podcast. We've got Ed and we've got Tom. What's going on, fellas?
Boy, I am chilling. I'm surprised that Tom is in the house for like the second podcast in a row.
Guys, K. Michelle's new album dropped last week, and I want to first off talk about her thank yous, because this has been blowing up all over my Twitters. Apparently she was going off on Atlantic Records in her thank yous, which is like the craziest thing I've ever heard because the album was actually released on that label.
But if you listen to the album, and we'll get more into the album in a second, she pretty much disses every human being breathing on that album. So it doesn't surprise me that she went off on her label. She has like a interlude where she's breaking up with her label, or like label suicide note or something like that, if I remember.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy, but did you guys get a chance to listen to the album? Because, we love K. Michelle up, on here with this podcast, and just, we've always supported her. I actually had a chance to listen to it, and I want to say it's probably, even though I know she doesn't like the album, and I think she's made it clear on numerous interviews, she kind of said some of the songs on the album, the label forced her to record. I think actually the lead single, the one that samples the Jay-Z record, Song Cry, she didn't even like that record at all, which is why there's no music video for it. But as I listen to the album, it's probably her second best album after her debut.
Well, here's my thoughts on the album. And I struggle with K. Michelle with some of the same reasons and that I struggle with H.E.R. and a few more artists. And that K. Michelle is extremely talented. And if you listen to that album, there are some very, very, very good songs. I think there's this joint called Rounds that I just love. Like, she's got some bangers on the album. But the actual album construction, I'm not a fan. It was just overly long. And then one thing we need to get rid of in 2017 is these albums with 20-something tracks on them and half of them ain't saying nothing. So I think the album is too long. It's a little all over the place as far as styles. And if she had cut it by like 8 tracks, tighten it up, she really would have had something. But in this era of let's give us more and quantity is over quality, I think that her fans will like it. But as an overall package, it's just a little too much, and that hurts the presentation. But like you said, there's some bangers on it.
I haven't got a chance to hear the whole thing yet, but I almost wonder if the dissing the label is a publicity way of getting about causing drama and stuff like that. She's known for drama. But I almost feel like these days you see people like August Alsina dissing their label. I sometimes wonder if the label asked them to do that just to cause a stir and create publicity, but I don't really know.
No.
But Kyle, you did tell me... No?
No, I doubt it. I mean, it's been well documented that K. Michelle's been wanting to record a country album for the longest time, and it seems every time she announces that her next album will be country, it comes out and it's just another R&B album, and this sort of falls into that, although the latter part of the album you start hearing some of those country songs. So I do believe that, number one, that this is probably K. Michelle's last album on Atlantic, and that she will fully dive into that country sound, which I don't know who's really interested in that aside from K. Michelle. I'm not sure if her audience wants that, but I mean, people are known to act out on Instagram, and I don't think it has anything to do with marketing. They're just angry.
The skeptic in me, though, starts to lean a little bit towards Tom, because I think that while some of these artists might be angry and be speaking out, I don't think that the label would necessarily squash it like they want to, because they know with an artist that's kind of as outspoken, to say it nicely, as K. Michelle, that kind of adds to her personality and her following, and they know her followers love drama. So they might kind of gas her up a little bit, just to give it a little bit of publicity. Because in these days, as we said 1,000 times on this podcast, you can't just promote your album by conventional means. And if people check out the album because they hear she's dissing the label, maybe that'll get a few more streams. I don't think that they're technically going out saying, hey, K. Michelle, call us garbage on Instagram. But if she does it, they might not have that much of a problem with it if it increases their streams. It's all about money to these guys. You line their pockets, they don't care.
Well, there are a couple of great songs on the album. I'm not sure if she actually likes these songs, but there are a couple of... You know what? I'm going to say this. Some of her trap songs that she did, they weren't as bad as I would have expected. Like, even the song with Chris Brown, it's not great, but it's not horrid by any chance, by any stretch.
Yeah, she does that kind of sound better and better justice than most people. I'm not really opposed to her doing that kind of stuff.
And I got to give a quick shout out to Jeremiah, who is... Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but he is probably the worst vocalist in R&B. He sounds like a cartoon character.
Oh, my God.
I got to say it.
Oh, man.
But he actually is on a song with K. Michelle. The song's called Takes Two, and sonically it sounds amazing up until Jeremiah's part, and once he gets on, it's like, man, he ruined it. And he did the same thing, I think, with the song with 7th Streeter and Ty Dolla. Once he got on it, it like killed the whole vibe. But
oh, please.
Yeah.
Ty Dolla did a good enough job of dragging that into the abyss too. Don't put that all on Jeremiah. Jeremiah. I mean, I understand. I wouldn't say it was a sonic masterpiece or anything, but Jeremiah, I don't really get... Some artists I do not like, and I get the appeal. I think Cardi B is a joke, and y'all will light my mentions on fire, so go to E.T. Bowser and do what you do best. But I think she's terrible. But I understand the hype behind her because of her reality show backing. So that I get. But then there's like a Jeremiah that I don't understand at all. Because his hooks aren't good. They're catchy, but not like in a Ty Dolla $ign way catchy. I can see him. I don't get the appeal of that brother at all. And I like Birthday Sex, but ugh.
Wow. Ed, you're such a hater.
True story.
Well, obviously.
True story. Tom almost gave up on R&B when Birthday Sex came out. So
if he almost gave up on it in 2009, he had a long way to go because the worst was yet to come.
I won't deny that.
Another song that I really liked on the album was a song called Brain on Love, which was produced by Eric Hudson. So there are a handful of great songs on this project.
They are.
Tom, I gotta ask you though, as we go back to K. Michelle wanting to do a country album. Number one, and Ed, you can answer this as well. Are you mad at an artist if they want to genuinely go into, let's say, doing country music, but their fan base might not be into it? Are you mad at them if they try to bring their fan base to that sound? Because I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I don't really want to hear a K. Michelle country album. I want her to do that R&B.
That's an interesting topic, but you're asking me, a person who, one of my favorite artists, Musiq Soulchild, went off and made hip-hop music. He made some different types of R&B. I don't know what you want to call the Purple Wonder Love album, but I don't knock him for exploring his passions. I mean, really, I think the art form is supposed to be just that. Artists exploring what they're passionate about and doing what they feel, so I can't knock someone if it's not trendy or popular.
What about you? What about you, Ed?
I struggle with this a little bit too because, from the creative standpoint, I have been very vocal about this. I feel like it's unfair to when we're talking about these artists. A lot of times they have this extreme creativity that we as fans can't understand. Like, we like a certain sound, and especially the sound. In most cases, the sound that made us fall in love with the artist. We want that sound all the time. If you had a flavor of ice cream that you just was like, oh, this makes me like ice cream, you will like ice cream because of that one flavor. So a lot of times with these artists, we want them to continue to give us what they fell in love with. But that might not be where their passion is. They might want to branch out. They might want to try something new. They might want to experiment. So that's why, in theory, I'm never mad at stuff like The Hustle and the K. Michelle's wanting to do country and the Justin Timberlake's wanting to do country, because this is a different way for them to creatively express themselves. And like we saw with Bruno Mars, sometimes you can switch lanes and it work and you can draw in new fans. But the selfish side of me doesn't want you to change from what I fell in love with at first. So for me, I'm not mad at an artist who tries something new, and I do think it's unfair to be like, you sold out, because they are doing something different. But I only get frustrated when they do something new and they do it terribly, and then they get mad when the fans don't follow along with them. If you're going to do something, cool, but make sure you give us quality. And if you can't do it well, stay in your lane.
Damn.
And imagine if she had kept that song she wrote for Keisha Cole and put it on her own album.
It would have fit, honestly.
Yeah.
What?
Man.
I was being sarcastic. Incapable?
You don't like Incapable? It's a decent song.
She didn't write that song, did she?
What,
No,
what
she
are you
didn't.
talking about?
Elijah Blake. Guys, Elijah Blake wrote that song.
It just sounds like a K. Michelle song. Remember we talked about this, Ed. Stay with me here.
Oh my god.
Oh, your Jedi mind tricks almost worked on both of us. I was confused for a second.
It did. It worked on both of you guys. That's funny.
You know what, though? Now that you guys talk about this and following your true passions, I think we all owe Usher an apology. He went off and explored his true passion with the glow stick EDM music, and we bashed him for it. And now K. Michelle gets to do
player,
country
please.
music. Damn.
Oh, no. You get no pass from me. Usher Raymond gets nothing. You don't get a pass. You don't get a clean bill of health. You don't get anything.
Speaking of Usher, on his Instagram, about a couple of days ago, I was looking at his Instagram, and he posted a picture with him and Justin Timberlake in the studio, and I had to do like a double take because I couldn't believe my eyes. Like, why would Justin Timberlake and Usher be in the studio together? And my immediate response was, wow, that's great charity work by Justin Timberlake. But as I thought about it more... As I thought about it more and more, and I'm thinking, what if that's an actual collaboration? That would be kind of cool. I mean, I think it's like 10 years too late, but it would be kind of cool.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. I know Justin Timberlake, Black Twitter is supposed to hate him for... I don't want to get into that, because then that'll be 30 minutes of me ranting. And, you know, we don't like Usher because Usher makes terrible music now. But at their best, that would be a dream collabo. So, I wouldn't be against it.
I think we'd all welcome it at this point. I'm actually more curious, though, to hear what Justin Timberlake's next project is going to sound like. In that interview that Timbaland did when he revealed that he was had almost died, actually, he did mention that as a footnote that the Timberlake album was done. So I'm curious to hear what that sounds like.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be different and unique, and we'll have to see what happens with that one. Can I stop this podcast really quickly to give you guys a PSA from Chris Brown? This was straight from his Instagram, guys. He said,
"Why
attention,
are you reading this guy's Instagram?"
Hold on. He said, attention everyone. Don't stop streaming Heartbreak on a Full Moon. Keep buying and listening to the album. Let's make this album platinum. Are you guys down?
Oh my! So I hope all those Team Breezy fans are all on my timeline has kept that song playing endlessly for the past 2 months now because Cousin Chris told you to. Just turn on the stream. Don't listen to it. Just let it stream so he can go platinum.
I think we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Miguel's numbers came out earlier in the week. He did about 40,000 with stream, but based on pure album sales alone, pretty much just like everyone else, 15 to 16,000. I don't know. I mean, I'm not surprised by his album numbers because this era did kind of start off quiet. But Miguel's always been one of those artists that sells slowly over time, and he eventually hits like gold. So I'm pretty sure it'll be something similar for him this time around.
Yeah,
Man,
I would.
Go ahead,
Tom.
Ed. I was going to say, I can't help but think, what if his fans had just put the album on repeat on Spotify and just left the house and didn't even bother listening? He would have been platinum by now.
Clearly, the Miguel fans aren't as dedicated as the Breezy fans.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, player. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by these numbers. They're kind of sobering, but we shouldn't be surprised. In 2017, they are what they are. And even though I love Miguel, I don't even remember that big of a... Like, there was a little bit of hype for this album, but it wasn't the buzz that we're used to. And I don't think that we can get the buzz that we're expecting in 2017. Will that change going forward? I don't know. But I think we've kind of hit this plateau where artists are really going to be where they are unless you have some ridiculous gimmick like Cousin Chris or some massive comeback like maybe a Justin Timberlake. I think pretty much the numbers we're seeing are going to be across the board for everybody.
You know what? I think it's really interesting in terms of Miguel's career. I think his first... Because this is how this is how albums used to go, right? You would release an album, and the following album would be like a continuation of the first album with a little bit of progression, and then the third album would be a little more progression, like Usher's My Way album to 8701 to Confessions. It was a nice progression. With Miguel's albums, and I'm asking this because I'm curious to hear how you guys feel about this approach, from Kaleidoscope Dream to Wild Heart to this new album, War and Leisure, it's not necessarily a progression that we're seeing. It's just three different directions. How do you guys feel about that type of, I guess, decision-making by an artist? Because in some ways it does confuse the listener, but it's kind of cool to see that Miguel can dibble and dabble in different sounds.
Yeah, it can be confusing, especially, again, when we talked a little bit earlier about fans who come on board. Like, if you look at Miguel at maybe his creative and commercial peak, and you look at Kaleidoscope Dream, and as far as, like, critical acclaim, if you came on board that and you heard the next two albums, it sounds like a completely different artist. So it can be jarring for some fans who came on board expecting a certain sound and getting something different. But I always look at Miguel as sort of a Prince. If you look at Prince's albums, they're the same way. They're like all over the place. They're not really when you look at them chronologically, they don't flow in a progression. Each one is like its own standalone movie instead of a sequel to a sequel to a sequel to a sequel. So it's not unheard of, but it's a different approach, and it's challenging, especially in this day and age when many fans don't like being challenged.
But looking back, I mean, what do you guys think about Skywalker? I mean, we talk about Miguel was able to give the freedom to do what he wanted to do, but do you feel like that's something he really wanted to do?
I think so.
I mean, I
like the song.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I get where you're going, that it might be a directive, like, hey, we want this. And it is the only song on the album that kind of sounds like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if the label was like, we need something for urban radio. Get that Travis Scott guy on it. But, again, he does it well enough that it doesn't bother me and it doesn't sound like a ridiculous pandering to some trap sound. So it wouldn't shock me if he didn't want to do it, but he does it so well that if he didn't, he played it off well.
And I think that's...
Even lyrically? You're cool with it?
No, lyrically, I think that's what makes it Miguel. The whole Skye walking on these haters and all of that, there was another line on there that I thought was hilarious. It was something like, she may be vegan, but she wants the steak tonight. Like, that's just Miguel being witty, and like that's just part of Miguel's artistry. I think the sound and the direction may have been forced on him, but he took that situation and made it his own, which, I mean, I can't be mad at that. I mean, even on songs that are Miguel-like, like he had a Pineapple Sky song and a Banana Clip song, so I think that's just Miguel and his lyrical content.
Fair enough.
Which, by the way, those two songs have the most ridiculous titles I've ever heard, but they're both pretty good, actually.
It sounds like Rick Ross made them, because the Lord knows that man loves some fruit in his songs.
Another album that, I don't know, did it come out yet in Jesse Boykins?
Yes, it did.
Which is interesting, because this album came out like a year ago, and he got signed to Def Jam, and they're releasing it on Def Jam now. That's definitely interesting, but Ed, I know you like the album, right?
Well, I was talking to Tom before we hit play on the podcast, and I hadn't realized that it was the earlier version of the album. And I enjoyed the previous album. I didn't know it was the same one. But again, it's kind of not unheard of. I remember Ludacris, his debut album was just really like his kind of like unofficial mixtape album made into a major label debut. I think Bubba Sparks was the same way. So this happens occasionally when you have an independent artist signed to a major label. So it's not that shocking, but if you missed this album the first time around, this is a good chance to check it out, especially if you're a fan of his music.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that he did get signed. Not that he didn't deserve it, but he's not very as young as some of the artists who are getting signed, and he's been around for a while. Def Jam major label. We've met him a few times. He's a good dude, but I think he put the album out for free last year. So now he's trying to release it, with the proper platform. I see what he's doing, but I did find it interesting. But I'm happy for him. He's a good guy, and definitely very artistic and a unique artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I got to ask you guys, we were talking about this on Facebook earlier with our boy DJ Soulchild, so I'm going to ask you guys, who in R&B, or what in R&B, with only 3 letters to their name, is the best right now?
The best 3-letter artist in R&B right now?
Yep.
I have no idea.
Well, I'll throw out some
who
names.
is there?
I'll throw out some names, and then you guys can decide. So we have H.E.R.
Okay.
We have SZA. We have Neo.
Man, there are more than I realized.
And we have NJS.
For life.
For life.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
So, give you a little bit of backstory, and this is actually pretty funny. I was at work when I was reading all of this, and I was dying. But our boy DJ Soulchild called us out because we weren't paying attention to Neo, who I actually like, so I don't know where he got that idea that I don't listen to her. Tom.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I said that. I was a fan.
I like Neo. But Tom came into the discussion and was just like, wow, I didn't know you would like Neo. It doesn't sound like New Jack Swing at all, or something like that. So
that was I give Tom props for that one. That
was the biggest low blow
ever.
Every
once in a while, he nails one.
Right.
Yeah,
but anyway,
Neo. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say H.E.R. is the best 3-letter artist. I'm sorry.
Neo. Neo. I'm not really into the internet, so I'm not really a fan.
Come on. Wait.
Oh my.
Wait, I guess we have Sid as well. She's another 3-letter name.
Who?
Sid.
No idea what's going on here, guys.
Oh my god.
Put down the cup, Tom. You're embarrassing yourself. Good Lord.
Tom's all about that PWL, Purple Wonder Love.
Oh. He would be.
Listen, guys, we're on the cusp of a new Craig David album coming out in January, and we're talking about this kiddie music.
Kiddie music?
All right. Let's relax here.
Clearly, this man has never listened to a Neo album.
Well, I'll tell you what, listeners, if you're out there, listen to Neo's album. What was Neo's last album called, Ed? Put you on the spot right here.
Crap, I can't remember. I think it's called like For All We Know, something like that.
Yeah, it was so memorable that no one has any idea. That's interesting.
No, it's definitely called For All We Know. The thing that stood out to me about Neo's concert when I went last year was that she was like walking around the stage barefooted and like spinning around. And I didn't know whether that would be something that Ed likes or not because he likes watching artists perform barefooted. But
what? Now somehow Kyle has commandeered Tom's cup.
Oh man!
No, I want all the listeners to check out Neo's album. For All We Know, it was actually a really good album. Had that throwback sound to it. It was a good album. I will
listen to your boy and not these eggnog sucking weirdos here. But the album was actually good. It was. Wow. Was it last year or year before last? But
no,
it was a pretty solid
year.
Piece of work.
It was definitely last year.
I definitely co-sign it.
Yeah, we don't know the name of the album, when it came out. We just know it was good.
Well, says the man that hasn't even heard the album. Don't. Oh my god. He's got Purple Wonder Love on his hard drive, trying to critique an album of actual substance. My God, what have we become?
Actually, Ed, I forgot to tell you, Tom said on the said in our chat earlier that due to the lack of quality in R&B today, Boyfriend Number 2 by Pleasure P is now considered a modern day classic. So, and I agree. So there you have it.
Yep.
You would agree with that because you're trying to get in back good with that guy now that you're friends again.
That's my dog.
Shout out to Pleasure P. Cause
okay, back on topic here. Another album. So we mentioned Craig David is coming out in January. I want to talk about this artist. We haven't really talked about her too much, but she was once and might still be considered one of the young stars that could make it, and that's Justine Skye. Her debut album, Ultraviolet, comes out in January, and she's been on the scene and trying to make it for a minute now. Could this be her time?
She's interesting because I feel like she was where Gabby was before her transformation a few years back. She was this talented artist that just had good songs, seemed to have everything together, seemed a little bit like she missed the era. If she had come along 10 years ago, it would be bona fide star, but just seems to have trouble kind of finding her footing in recent years. So perhaps this will be an opportunity for her to get out there and drop something monumental. Pretty much every year, she has songs that lands on our best tracks of the year countdown. So she's got has the skills to do it, has the material behind her. So all she needs is a push and a sustained album to really push that message. So she's got the tools. Let me see what she builds with them.
It's interesting, actually. She's still pretty young. I think she's only about 21 at this point, and she has a fan base. But the interesting thing to me is she never kind of went overly trendy, and it's at the point where I actually like her music. You know, it's kind of rooted in traditional R&B, and I almost wonder if that's held her back, where she didn't fully, quote unquote, sell out to this point. So I don't know how well it's going to do. I'm curious to see, but I'm rooting for her. She's cool, and she's made good music. I mean, her latest single that's out now is pretty cool too. So we'll just have to see, I guess.
Well, Tom, the good news is there's not a lot of features on this project, which is pretty interesting for a R&B album, especially one that's coming from somebody of her age. She only has Jeremiah as her feature, and if Jeremiah is your feature, when we have the Migos and all of those guys, then it's not too bad. Good news, Ed, there's a song written by Party Next Door on the album. You like him?
You and your Canadian brethren, you can go somewhere. Except, we can keep Deborah Cox, though. You can have the rest of them.
And Tamia.
Oh, yes. Man. And Melanie Fiona?
Melanie Fiona. Tom, should we keep Glenn Lewis?
Oh, we're keeping
Tom's
Glenn Lewis.
keeping Glenn Lewis. I'll have those three locked in my house, and Tom will have that one.
Oh, come on. Don't forget to consider his album with Jazzy Jeff for Albums of the Year, Ed.
Well, player, don't worry, because I won't guarantee, but it's very likely that we'll make a showing. Speaking of that, we'll be talking about that very soon.
Absolutely. Is it ignorant for me to believe that Justine Skye and Keke Palmer are the same person, musically?
Oh,
yes.
My goodness.
Good Lord.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry. Because Keke Palmer's another one that's been trying to make it for a minute.
Keke Palmer is nothing like Justine Skye.
Oh. Musically?
Player, that's like confusing Genuine with... Good Lord, I don't even know.
Calvin
Avery
Richardson.
Storm or somebody.
Avery Storm? Wow. Shout out to Avery Storm. Anywho, we're talking about a lot of the albums that are coming out next year. Craig David, Justine Skye, and we just talked about one that came out last week, and the week before it came a show on Miguel. But let's talk about some of the albums that we really liked from 2017. I mean, there's so many that come to mind, and it was an interesting year for R&B. I think we started to see a lot of the younger artists, or more younger artists, going back to that traditional sound, from the likes of like a Kevin Ross to Tone Stith, who came out with a great project. I guess overall, what did you guys think of 2017 albums?
That noise I made is pretty much how I thought about R&B in 2017. As I've been working on my list of best projects of the year, I have spent the last week and a half kind of compiling. I can't remember, I don't have my list in front of me, but I think I listened to 111 albums this year. I've got them all chronicled. And I gotta say, most years R&B destroys hip-hop, but this is one of the first years that hip-hop was pretty solid. And R&B was not horrible, but it was a lot of just okay material. There was a lot of 3-star and 3.5-star albums. Just a lot of so-so stuff. And that was disappointing. But like you said, Kyle, there were a lot of younger artists who really stepped up and kind of pushed their music to the forefront. And we saw a lot of returning veterans come through and shut it down like we know they could. So, whereas it wasn't as strong as it wasn't a disastrous year. It wasn't as strong as it looked on paper. But it was still some opportunity for some old faces, especially, to come back and shine.
For me, it was just solid. Coming from the perspective of YouKnowIGotSoul, we supported a lot of 90s artists and traditional R&B singers. It was just a solid year, I thought. But I pretty much expected that at this point. I mean, we're not getting anything that's changing the game from these artists or mind-blowing. We're getting some songs that are great, but the albums, for the most part, for me, have just been solid. And I'm okay with that, where we're at in 2017. But what did you think, Kyle?
I mean, realistically, it is kind of sad because, I mean, we don't talk about it, but at this point, if an album has at least, or has 4 good songs on it, we kind of consider that a good album now.
Yeah.
I mean, I want everyone to think about it, but it's true, right? If there's at least 4 good songs, we're okay with that. And that wasn't what it used to be before. We used to, like Ed, critique albums based on the entire project, but it's kind of hard to do that now. But in terms of albums that came out this year, I thought it was a very interesting mix. You know, you had artists going towards more of that trap sound and having it sound awful, like Tank.
Oh, God.
Oh, my
Tank.
goodness. Oh.
We had artists that came in and just tried to bring back that traditional sound, like I said, like Tone Stith, but with a modern touch to it. And then we had artists like 112 that I think it was a welcomed addition to have them back. So I can't really say for sure how I felt about this year because I'd definitely have to look back and see how it was. But overall, I thought it was solid. And, you know, so many albums that come to mind, but what were some of your favorites? Like for me, I just mentioned Tone Stith is one that I think really stood out. And I think, Ed, you can agree with me on that one?
Definitely agree with you on that one. And actually, Kyle put me onto that. So look at you, Kyle, for putting me onto something hot. That would definitely probably make my top 10 for R&B this year. My favorite project, if we're talking about R&B, would probably either be between Avery Sunshine and Daniel Caesar. And they're both extremely different sounds because you kind of got the traditional vocalist that Avery is compared to Daniel Caesar is a little bit more understated. But I thought both those projects were outstanding in different ways. So those were probably my 2 favorites of the year.
Wait, did you just call a Canadian brother of mine understated? I think he's a pretty talented vocalist. How dare you?
He makes good music, but I don't want him singing the Star Spangled Banner anytime soon.
Oh, God.
Oh. Well, he wouldn't be. He sings "O Canada."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Anyway, you can continue.
I'm gonna throw one out there who I thought had a really good album, and he was recognized.
Let me guess.
No.
Let me guess.
No. I'm going.
Are we feeling the real, Tom?
We're not feeling the real just yet. We got to give Ed some time to warm up to that one. We're going to go with P.J. Morton, who released Gumbo this year. And I felt like this one was overlooked big time, and it got Grammy nominated. And I believe you like this one too, Ed, but really this is a really talented artist who doesn't really get the attention he deserves. He's part of Maroon 5 and just keeps making quality music.
definitely agree. He was one of those albums. It was one of those albums that unfortunately kind of came and went. People were hyped about for a couple weeks, and then you just didn't hear it mentioned again. But it was one of the better albums of the year, especially early in the year when we really didn't have too much strong material out. So he was definitely high on my list. Another person I forgot is high on my list. My man Stokely Williams. Now this is his first solo album, which is insane to think about with his career being as long and storied as it is. But we had high expectations, and he came through with a banger. So again, Stokely, one of the best ones of the year. And I feel like that's another album that should have gotten much more attention than it did.
Absolutely. Another album, let me try to think here. I think, you know what, I got to give a quick shout out to Kevin Ross, who put together just a solid album. Really, you know, obviously Long Song Away hit #1, but I think he just came with a project and proved that a younger artist could come with a mature sound. And I think him going into that urban AC route early on in his career allows him to have, I mean, just a stable and longer career moving forward. And I think it was a very well put together album. So that would be one of my top 10s.
The thing I liked about his album and the reception of his album is just, and his singles, it was so well received. And I was surprised to see younger fans really gravitating toward it. And it proved to me when people are like, oh, that's old people's music. Oh, no one cares about that. The kids just want to turn up. No, kids like good music. And I have a lot of younger fans across my timelines who are really into Kevin Ross. So it shows that there's a little bit of gas in the tank there.
I'm going to mention Lettucey's album this year. And what's significant about this is, I mean, I know a couple months ago when she released High, and I was a little critical of it, and I didn't know what to expect from this album. But, man, she came with another quality project. You know, it was solid from top to bottom. I really liked it. So, Lettucey, you know, she never disappoints. And that's one I'd like to highlight.
Yeah. Although I will say, and a lot of people reminds me of this, because they're like, oh, you hated the album. I didn't hate the album. I liked it. I didn't think it was as good as her previous projects. So it was a little, I don't know, it felt like a little too safe, which is weird to say when you had a single as daring as High was. But I felt the overall project was, you know, just a Lettucey project. But just safe Lettucey is better than turned up pretty much everybody else. So I think that it was a success on that end. But to go on that point a little bit, I think Layla Hathaway is an artist who kind of went out of her lane a little bit and to great success. I really like her Honesty album.
I want to mention 2 albums really quickly. One just for the sake that we don't get killed, and the other one just because I feel like he deserves a shout out for putting together a pretty solid album. I don't think it's going to make our top 10, but he surprised me with this one. That was Sammy, Coming of Age. Ed, you and I were both, you know, every week it seemed like he was putting out a fire single, and we were like, what's the rest of the album going to sound like? Unfortunately, it fell a little short, but there are a lot of good songs on there.
You are right. We've been working on our top 50 lists individually for the year, and I just added a couple Sammy songs on my list because, like you said, the singles were really surprisingly good. The overall package was okay. Kind of fell in that K. Michelle role where it's kind of front-loaded with good stuff and kind of peters out before the end, but there was definitely some stuff there worthy of your speakers.
And it's actually hilarious that you used that description for Sammy because I was just going to make a mention of this album because I know a lot of people are going to come for us. But Mary J. Blige, Strength of a Woman, very great great from 1 to 7. Sort of dies off near the end of it. But, I mean, it was a good album. A lot of people are mad that it didn't get Grammy nominated. A lot of people are calling it Album of the Year. I don't think it was that, but it did have a lot of good songs on there.
A lot of people need to calm down. Good Lord. I mean, I'm with you. I like the album a lot. And I think that, at least on my end of the spectrum, on Soul and Stereo, it got a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people thought that I kind of overrated it because the reaction on my site was like, yeah, it's okay, but it's not Mary. But I think, I mean, if you compare it to My Life and Share My World, of course it's not that great. But as a standalone project, it was one of the better albums of the year. I don't know that I put it in my top 10 for R&B, but it was definitely top 15.
Another one I want to mention is Daily, The Spectrum. Yep. His sophomore album came out this year. And I keep feeling like a lot of the best music in R&B right now is coming, especially for traditional R&B fans, is coming from the UK. You know, this kid's from the UK, and his second album was, you know, kind of picked up where his first one left off. Really solid, vocally impressive, and it didn't disappoint at all. His first single, Until the Pain Is Gone, with Jill Scott, was a cool song, so I like that one.
My God, yes. Probably one of my favorite singles of the year.
Yep, I think we all love that one. Wait, is it Nail from the UK as well, Tom?
The internet is from the UK?
Oh, my God.
Stop.
Next question, please.
Oh, man. 112, I'm not going to put it in my top 10, but it had some good songs on there, and I was happy to see them back. I want to quickly, if we can, what was the worst R&B album of 2017, or the one that had you most disappointed?
Oh, boy.
Do we really have to go there?
I'm ready if you are.
We can either do that, or you can have your 5-minute about Feel the Real.
All right, I got it. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm a big supporter, but, man, I was so disappointed with Jagged Edge's album. I couldn't even...
Ding, ding, ding. There is your winner.
I couldn't even get through it. I'm sorry.
Listen, player. I told y'all, I listened to well over 100 albums this year. That includes 21 Savage. That includes Meek Mill. That includes these weirdos that I can't even pronounce their name. The XXX Tent Action, whatever his name is. Jagged Edge was the worst album I have listened to in 2017.
If fans are listening right now, that was at E.T. Bowser. Jagged Edge, we love you.
JE fans already been mad, so come on and camp out. Bring your Black Friday chairs in front of Best Buy. Camp on out in my mentions.
And shoot, since we're all just curb stomping Jagged Edge right now, I'm just going to put it out there. You could have taken the 12 worst songs off that 45-song Chris Brown album, and it would still be better than the Jagged Edge album.
Oh, Lord. I don't know if I'll go that far. Because Cousin Chris had some bombs on that thing. Ooh.
Pills and Automobile, man. That's way better than any Jagged Edge song.
Unfortunately, he's right.
And I guess no surprise to any of us, another disappointing album. I wouldn't call it the worst album of 2017, but Tank's Savage album. I feel like we're at that point now where we should just expect this type of music from Tank. So maybe it's not bad or disappointing, but I think we're going into it with too many expectations of it being traditional R&B.
Well, and I went on a rant about this. I think this was one of Tomless podcasts where I went crazy, so Tom wasn't around to rein me in. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Tank has told us what he's going to do. Like, that's what he's going to do. So we can't get mad when he's going to do it. So just accept that we're going to hear a whole lot more win-wees than we're going to hear slowlies. And that's where we are.
Oh, I totally forgot. I have another album that I kind of want to mention as one of our better R&B albums of the year. I'd have to look back to see where it lands, but I've been listening to this album a lot recently just because I saw her in concert, and that was Jhené Aiko. Let me just say first off that she is the most boring performer I've ever heard.
You don't say.
It was pretty boring. I think I want to say it's just her vocally, and like she's not necessarily a strong vocalist, and like most of her music is very vibe driven, but that was very slow and boring. But the album I thought was very solid. It was a little too long, but it had a lot of good songs on there.
A little too long? That thing was longer than the Madea Christmas movie. Good Lord. That thing was like 95 minutes or something ridiculous. But again, yeah. I don't know why we have come to this place in 2017 where we have to have these gigantic mammoth albums. If that album was 12 tracks, it would have been fantastic. It would have definitely been in my top 10. And it's not too far out of my top 10. Like you said, it had a good premise and there were good songs, but for some reason the art of editing albums no longer exists. And there's nobody around to tell these artists, hey, You might want to cut out tracks 13 through 47, dog.
Yep.
Can I just name a couple more so we don't forget anyone? I want to. These might not necessarily end up in our top 10, but they had solid projects. I want to say Eric Roberson, his 3-part EP series that he put out, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Vivian Green with her album this year.
Yes,
VG6.
Yes.
Faith Evans and Biggie. That one was solid. And Molly.
Hold on. Faith, I don't know about that Faith album.
I thought it was pretty creative, and I thought it was enough to keep, those who... You knew what it was going to be. I mean, Ed, what do you think?
Well, the problem with the Faith album is it's one of those albums that I want to like because I am such a huge fan of Biggie, such a huge fan of Faith. And conceptually, I love the album. The way it kind of told the story from them meeting to dating to marrying to cheating to death. It was from conceptually, it's one of the best albums of the year. It's just the issue with cutting up those old vocals and slapping them on new vocals. It just feels choppy because, of course, it is. So I don't think it was horrible, as Kyle is saying. But, definitely could have been better. But I give him props for the creative direction. I'm not mad at Tom for this one.
We're talking honorable mention here, so...
Yeah, honorable mention.
And Ed, I got to give you some props. Ed, I got to give you some props because you've managed to go this whole feature without talking about Tom's 2 worst enemies, Keisha Cole and SZA.
Oh my goodness. Now, SZA is like, I didn't even mention SZA because Tom, of course. Keisha, shout out to Keisha. We all remember the Keisha incident from a few months ago where she got pissed at me and then loved me in the span of like 10 minutes on Twitter. But I thought her album was better than most people give her credit for, but not really top 10 worthy. Thought it had some good songs on it, definitely.
Guys, I haven't had a chance to listen to the Sizzler album yet, so once I do, then we can discuss.
Somebody cut this guy's mic. And while we're at it, let me just go ahead and give Tom props. His boy Musiq, his boy Glenn Lewis, both dropped pretty great projects this year that will most likely land on my top albums of the year. I give you credit for that.
Woo! All right.
But is credit enough to win Musiq Soulchild his first Grammy? Time will tell, because Tom might be off the podcast soon.
Might happen.
Oh, I'm counting the days, player. Your days is numbered, dog.
I hope you got Barry Bars on speed dial.
Listen, I'll call up Barry with special guest Case, and we'll be good to go.
Case? Anyways, I think that pretty much wraps up this year's albums that we really liked. Stay tuned in a couple of weeks when we publish the list as well as our best songs of the year. Be interested to see what everyone else thinks. But until then, let's get into the Hall of Fame. This has been a feature that we've kind of skipped over a couple of times. And last week we brought it back. We got Usher into the Hall of Fame. Ed, I'll leave it to you. I'm going to throw you on the spot. Name somebody that you think should be talked about on this Hall of Fame discussion.
Well, I need to check the archives because one of our podcast listeners hit me up a couple of weeks ago and said that we had never nominated Mary J. Blige. Is that true?
This is true.
Well, let's do Mary J. since apparently we left her off. We were talking about her earlier today. But, what can you say about Mary J. that hasn't already been said?
Who's Mary J. Blige, Ed? Tell us. I don't think these R&B fans know.
If they are dumb enough to be listening to this podcast and not know the queen of hip-hop soul, please educate yourself because you need help. Mary J. came up in this game 1992. I still remember. There are a few artists that you can remember where you were when you first heard a song. And to this day, I remember when I first heard Real Love and was like, what is this? But she came in, completely changed the game in 92 and then just built upon her legacy with My Life and Share My World and Mary and became one of the flag bearers for R&B. But as most legends do, in later years, their careers kind of took a dip, kind of took a nosedive. But does that take away from the artistry that they gave us with the plethora of 5-star albums? I would give My Life and Share My World 5 stars, and a couple others get super close. And classic songs all over the place. A first ballot, no-brainer Hall of Famer to me. But what do y'all think?
Well, did Monica make it in or no?
Are you comparing Monica to Mary J. Blige?
Just kidding, guys. Mary J is in. Come on, there's no even discussion on this one. Let's move to the next one.
Well, I just want to make a quick point that, as Ed mentioned when he first heard Mary J's music, what did you say, Ed? What is that?
Yes.
See, that brought me, and it's sort of a flashback, but I remember the first time I saw the music video for Always on Time and I saw Ashanti, I was like, who is that? So, similar. Ashanti and Mary J are both the
honestly, I'm pretty sure I said the same thing when I saw her. I was like, who is that in that hat? Lord. But then she started singing and I was like, oh, okay. You were better when you were singing.
Oh, but yes, Mary J is definitely in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the first 3 albums, what can you say? The first 2 album itself, like, you made My Life and What's the 411, like, what else do you need to say? She came back in the mid-2000s with the Breakthrough album, and that itself, that's like a classic in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Me Without You is one of the biggest songs of the 2000s. So, it's interesting, though, like, she never really crossed over to pop like a lot of her, a lot of the people that she came up with, like Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey, but she's had such a huge following in R&B that there's no way you could deny her impact at all.
Yeah, I maybe the closest that crossed over was that Dancer and the Hateration and the Dancery, whatever that song was. Like, that might have been the closest. But you're right, she pretty much has always stayed in the R&B lane and has lived up to her name of the queen of hip-hop R&B soul.
Absolutely. We will continue this Hall of Fame discussion next week as we have gone over time. But, Ed, what's going on with soulinstereo.com?
Well, if you've been following us, you know that all month long we have been focusing on our Christmas playlist. So each day our listeners have, our readers have been contributing to songs. So we're up to day 11 as of this podcast. So the list is getting pretty lengthy, and people are really filling the list. So shout out to everybody who has contributed, and shout out to our readers for not just picking, like, you know, the Donny Hathaways and the Temptations. They're picking kind of obscure songs that even I haven't heard that are pretty freaking awesome. So if you missed the podcast, the playlist, just check out soulinstereo.com every day, because there's going to be a new song leading up to Christmas. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, our top albums of the year list will be coming out pretty soon. I am hoping to have that up by next Monday. I'm waiting for this NERD and Eminem to drop so I can see if they need to be included. One probably will, one probably will not, and I'll leave you to guess which one is which. But that'll probably be up pretty soon.
Ed, are you taking suggestions for your list or for your Christmas countdown?
Mm-hmm. I got a couple more spots left.
All right, put Illtown Family, Real Christmas.
Illtown Family, Real Christmas.
You ever hear of it?
No. What is this?
It's when KG from Naughty by Nature launched his label. Their first video ever was a Christmas song. It was the first appearance from Next.
The second that I put in Illtown, the whole thing popped up. So I do not remember this song, but I'm going to check for it.
Check it out.
Wow, look at that. And while you're at it, you can put the 2 Ashanti Christmas albums on there.
I am not putting that hot garbage on my list. We went over this last week.
All right. Tom, what's going on with YouKnowIGotSoul? I think you just put out an article recently of 10 artists to watch out for.
Yes, I saw
that. We got reached out to by a UK radio host, DJ Ace, and his publicist, who picked out some artists we should watch out for. And actually, I had never heard of any of them, but they're actually all really good. So if you haven't checked out that article, be sure to check that out. That's a pretty cool feature. Kyle, I know you've been at a whole bunch of shows and stuff lately.
Yeah, I've decided that I'm going to branch out and start covering turn-up music. So I got bored and interviewed someone from Little Yachty's sailing team. I interviewed Cody Shane. And that was like the most interesting interview I've ever been a part of because she's like 18. And I was trying to act cool around an 18-year-old and it just wasn't happening. She's actually the little sister of Brandy from the group Black, which I thought was kind of cool. She was telling me that she has pictures of like her and Left Eye when she was a baby, so I think that was kind of cool. The next interview that I have coming up, and I'm really excited about this one, and Ed had kind of hinted at it earlier, I will be interviewing my BFF, Pleasure P, along with his group, Pretty Ricky. I can't wait for that one because let me give you guys some backstory. If this was 2009 and I told Tom I was interviewing Pretty Ricky, he would have shut that down so fast.
As he should have.
True. But now it's okay?
Yep, because R&B is struggling, so even Pretty Ricky is considered gods in R&B.
Oh my God, when Spectacular is up there with the 5 best artists in the game, something went wrong. Speaking of concerts,
on, Ed.
I think I forgot to tell you, Kyle, we checked out the Janet Jackson State of the World concert on Saturday, and it was freaking good. I was kind of surprised at how great it was.
Was she singing live? She was, right?
She was. I mean, it's Janet, so it was a lot of whispering going on, but that ain't changed. But this lady is 50 years old and was killing those dance moves. I was quite impressed. It was a very good show.
Damn. Brought back Ed to middle school. Look at that.
Boy, I'm gonna break your legs like we were in middle school.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm just going to end it off with this on this podcast. I don't actually know the song Rhythm Nation, so there you go.
Oh my goodness. Please send your tweets to YouKnowIGotSoul. You are going to get massacred, player.
But thankfully for great technology like Spotify, I will find out what that song is right after this podcast. Anyways, I hope everyone has I hope everyone has a great week. Are we back next week, guys? I know the holidays are coming around.
I think it depends on Ed's schedule. I think he's going to be going back to South Carolina.
I am going back to the motherland of Virginia, hometown of Missy Elliott, who you should be worshiping as a goddess, by the way. P-Town, Virginia. So I will be seeing my P-Town people in the next week or so. So I will be going to check them out. So I'm not sure what we'll do. You guys might have to hold it down without me. And Lord knows, you two, there'll be no one on the steering wheel. They can go right off the cliff.
Wait, at your Christmas dinner, will Cousin Chris be attending? Or maybe even Magoo?
Magoo.
I will always save a plate for Magoo. But the family that Cousin Chris is a part of, they aren't coming down. They're going to be up in Northern Virginia. So we're having Christmas at my parents' house. So no Cousin Chris.
I'm actually curious, Ed. This family that's related to Chris Brown, are they like really well off, or are they like outcasts in the Chris Brown like will?
But I don't know what their 401ks look like. I mean, they're not poor, but I don't come rolling up in there and like stretched Benzes. Like I'm sure they're doing all right.
Damn, I can't wait till one day you see Pills and Automobiles just rolling through your house, and it's Chris Brown coming out of the car. I cannot wait for that day.
It's probably going to happen, and it's going to be all bad. But until that day, I'm going to still run my mouth.
Immediately, I can hear it now. Immediately, Chris is going to be like, I hear you've been talking trash about me on that I got so-and-so serial podcast.
Oh, could get ugly.
It'll be bad.
Oh, no. I mean, I can't lie. I'm like, yeah. One interview?
Well, Ed, Tom, I hope you guys have a great holiday. I'm sure we'll be back next week, so I hope you guys have a good time doing whatever you guys are doing. I'm going to be here following what Chris Brown is saying and just continue streaming that album, getting it to platinum status. Until then, though, I will see all of you guys next week. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.